Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am mAdCapper and this is another video on Raid Shadow Legends. Today we're going to be talking about Rowan in the series of I Built Them So You Don't Have To. She is a Bannerlord faction Void Affinity attack-based champion who has a toolkit that is interesting and compelling in many ways, but also has quite a few drawbacks. One of the reasons we're doing this video today is because she was part of the recent 2.2 patch. So without further ado, let's get into it. Her base stats go as this: HP at 1645, completely usable, well within the parameters of what I like to see from an attack-based champion. We've worked with much lower, so having that many HP or that much HP is actually a bit of a godsend. You can easily get her into that 35,000 plus range for the clan boss. Her attack at 1487 is very good. I wouldn't call it amazing, but I would call it very good. And again, percentage-wise, it's going to allow you to do a whole lot more. Her defense is very low. This is the one critical point where it makes it a bit difficult to build her out, especially if you're trying to use her in late-game faction wars, late-game clan boss, because unless you're using an unkillable comp, it does make it a lot harder to build her out, especially when she is more reliant on her damage than other poison-based champions. Her speed at 108 makes up almost all of the difference though. Having a 108 speed on your team is one of the highest epic speeds in the game, and it makes things so much easier when building out. It was almost too easy. In fact, when I was building her out for my clan boss scenario, which I will of course show you the results of in this video, as for her crit rate, crit damage, those are pretty standard. Now, her kit is, I don't know, it's kind of interesting. First of all, she gives an ally accuracy and faction crisp by 50. This is an amazing ability for early game where you need to land her poisons, her stuns, other champions that are with her. You need to land their abilities. This is not going to, translate very well into the mid game, but if you pull Rowan early on and decide to level her, this is going to be 100% helpful to you. Her ability for the clan boss is, of course, this: attacks one enemy 4 times. Each hit has a 50% chance of placing a 5% poison debuff for 2 turns. Based on attack, it is bookable to 3 turns and 75%. This is the first place that they added a buff, as it was originally 65%, adding an extra 5% to each of the debuff chance on the level 3, level 4 books. Her Scourge is a 40% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn, attacking 3 times at random. This also received a buff. I believe the base chance was either 20, I think it was 25%. Don't quote me on that, but it was less than that. It was either 30 or 25%. And this, of course, is also bookable to 60% total opportunity. So you're going to look at 2, maybe 2 on average of the 3 landing each time, which is a fairly significant value. It is at random, and that is one thing I don't like about this ability. It would be nice if this was just attacks all enemies, and then whichever 2 or 3 got stunned. But for some reason, they decided this was the better way to go. Woe is me. And that is, of course, the 3-turn cooldown. Her A1, which is the only part of her kit that I absolutely loathe. It is a 60% chance of placing 100% heal reduction debuff for 2 turns based on attack and speed. Although I will tell you, playing with her speed, I didn't see much damage difference in her attack. So I'm not too sure exactly how much that plays into it. But this is bookable to a 70%. My problem with this is heal reduction is only useful in some places, in which case you want it to be 100%. And there are champions that have 100%. And where you don't want it to happen in the clan boss, you can't seem to avoid it. So no matter what happens, you're kind of stuck with putting this heal reduction up in the clan boss, and you're not landing it consistently in things like the magic potion dungeon or faction wars if you need to deal with a healing type scenario. So it is a little bit of a pain in the butt, but overall, it's a good toolkit. One of the big knocks on her was this ability right here, which which usually only put 2 and a little bit poison. So it's up to 75, which means you're going to get, 3/4 of your poisons landing on average. So 3 out of 4 on average, which is an okay number. It is certainly, it doesn't feel like a lot, but it is actually a lot better when you consider how many times you get to attack over 50 rounds in the clan boss is like 20 times, 18 times, say. So, having as many poisons as possible, of course, is an added benefit at any time, of course. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over and watch her 2 clan boss scenarios. So what I did, and we'll talk about it a little bit at the very end, but I put up a scenario putting her versus Frozen Banshee. I put them in the exact same gear, except for obviously their amulets, making sure that their speed fell within the right tune, and put them in an unkillable comp for 50 turns. So here was the first recording I had done of the Clanboss attack with Frozen Banshee. I did it at like 6 o'clock in the morning this morning. So needless to say, I didn't exactly get dressed up and commentate during this time. But I want to show you that like she's in Savage gear. They're both in the exact same gear. So you see 3600 attack, 33k health, doesn't really matter. 209 crit damage, 254 accuracy are the big stats for her at 173. So she's falling within that general one. I'm not going to play through the full attack on both champions. I just want to show you what her looks like, what Frozen Banshee looks like. We'll show you what Rowan looks like. And I'll show you the initial setup so you get a general idea. It's a 4-3 comp with Roshguard, and I brought in Valkyrie to tank the stun. This, incidentally, is one of my favorite comps that I've ever used. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the same damage that the 2-to-1 comps do, which is why I no longer use this one. But I use this one for a very long time, and it's very nice. Also to note is that I brought in Rosin. I normally use Venus over Rosin because she adds poisons, but I didn't want to add that damage or reduce the number of available slots. I wanted this to be a pure Frozen Banshee versus Rowan. So here it is. I'm gonna. By the way, I keep saying Rowan. I know you probably call it Rowan, but every time I hear it, I think of Matthew McConaughey in A Time to Kill with Roark, and now I can't stop calling her Rowan. So just a little TLDR as to why I call her Rowan instead of Rowan. But we're gonna actually cut out most of this. We're gonna show you the last couple turns as we do the final damage tally, and then we'll do the same thing with Rowan. This seems like as good a place as any to bring her back. Right at turn 49, as you can see, 40 million damage, easy 2-key. Keep in mind Void Affinity, but an easy 2-key for Frozen Banshee, as you'd expect. She is the best poisoner in the game when in a counterattack team, especially a counterattack team with the block damage. So let's reset this up and let's show you the run with Rowan, and we'll go from there. So through the magic of poorly edited content, here is Rowan with the same gear. 4790 attack is to note, as well as 219 crit damage, 232 crit accuracy, sorry. She gets way more attack just because she has a higher starting attack. When you add percentage modifiers to that, it's going to exponentially increase her attack. The other thing with Rowan is that she's got a much higher speed. So there were some changes in the amulet the banner that gave her a little bit of extra attack as well. But she needs that because she's not going to put near as many poisons. So for her to even get close in this key, it's going to require her to do a lot more damage outside of poisons. Otherwise, she can't even. It won't even be close, right? Because she's just only landing, on average 3 poisons for 2 turns as opposed to 6 poisons every round, and that's a huge difference, especially the sensitivity on top of that, getting that extra damage. And here we are at turn 49. As you can see, we're going to just eke over to the 2-key area. A considerable amount less damage than the Frozen Banshee, and we'll talk about that in a second here once this finishes. So you're looking at the damage, and there we go. And we're going to get hit 35.94. And you're going to see 15,133,000. And if you give me a second here, we'll put both of them up so you can compare what happened between the two. So all other champions, about the same. You can see there's a 5 million difference between Rowan and Frozen Banshee. But the reason why that is so amazing for Rowan is because she is actually at a disadvantage in counterattack, and she's not using her advantage that she can fight, for example, the Force Affinity boss, which Frozen Banshee would struggle. So when you look at this difference and you consider all the bonuses that you get out of Rowan, it's actually a fairly reasonable, very closer battle than it looks when you take everything else considered. Obviously, we're going to talk about it, but things like counterattack, things like if you need Rowan in more places than just the clan boss, that's where she excels over Frozen Banshee. But pure damage in the clan boss, Frozen Banshee's still the champ. Okay, so we're going to take her in dungeons, but before we do that, we're going to have to talk about her gear. Her gear is obviously slightly changed from what I used in the clan boss, but I kept most of it intact, to be honest with you. I wanted to keep the Savage gear in there. I feel like she's an attack-based player. It would probably best served to use her for that and see what we can do. She's going to be in that nuking spot. As much as she has 108 speed, which really helps push the dial, I didn't want to lose too much of that attack. Even switching her to speed boots, I lost a considerable amount of the attack. I'm not even at 4K anymore. So, I think these numbers are going to suit her well. I think maybe we might do a second run when we get to the arena where we might boost up her speed so that we can use her stun as opposed to using the other abilities. And of course, we'll have to boost up her accuracy when we get to there. So let's take this into the dungeons, see where she's at. Her masteries, in case you were curious, I have her in Giant Slayer, but we're actually going to change that up. We're not. We're not spending 150. I would actually put her in Helm Smasher because she does have a couple of AoE attacks, or multi-hit attacks rather. So those multi-hit means additional chances to proc. That is going to proc Giant Slayer as well, but outside the clan boss, probably not as generally useful. This, of course, is for her poisons. I don't think I would go down the support route either with her if I was not using her in the clan boss. I think the defense route would be more suited to her to mitigate some of that damage and be able to get that counter attack. So just that, something to keep in mind, that these abilities is more for a clan boss scenario. Hi ho, it's off to the fire night we go. So I did test her out in all dungeons, and Ice Golem, she didn't really do anything. And the the Dragon, she didn't really do anything. In the Spider, she died. So she did something, to be fair. She did something in the Spider, she died. That's not really where she's going to excel. Dungeons in general isn't really her forte. I think she's Faction Wars and Arena primarily. Clan Boss, but I think she has use in the Arena. But this is an exception. And as you can see here, even with no AoE nuker per se, we are doing pretty well. I think we get touched once in this whole battle. And the reason is because we can just keep playing with that turn meter. This is not going to be the case, obviously, if you don't have Lysandra, but you can bring Allure in here and do some of this on the clan boss. But you probably want an AoE nuker for this if you don't have Lysandra or some. I'm trying to think of what other champion might have such extensive turn meter mitigation. Maybe Sylar, I guess. Maybe. Although still, it's only one ability, whereas she's got two, and Lysandra's so fast and adds speed. But we brought in Arbiter just in case someone dies. It turns out no one did. So the reason why I think she's good in Fire Knight versus the other areas is because she can do better damage against the shield. And ironically, she only hit once on the shield, so we didn't even get to see her multi-hit. But there's her A1. She does the block heal. Now, in our case, Cold Heart could have done that, but it's definitely useful to have multiple champions to have that just in case one doesn't, or they die, or what have you, or they miss it. Especially, obviously, if he's going to close his shield. Because we're using Lysandra, it ain't going to close. It rarely does. Allure would be the same thing. Most cases, you're not going to lose that opening, and so it's a little less important to have that heal reduction. But for most of you who are fighting through the Fire Knight and have to do things like reflect or counterattack or just a bunch of multi-hitters, she's going to help you out there. I would like to see her, maybe if we didn't have Lysandra, with a Rosin and Apothecary in her, along with Coldheart and Arbiter. I think that would be another really good team. Gorgrab you might have to bring in if you don't have Arbiter. Someone to res, essentially. Or maybe a champion that can help keep alive a Steel Skull, Mausoleum Mage. Just someone that can help that survivability. But just those sort of things to get those 10 hits on that shield if you don't have a way of keeping it open like we do here. That said, I mean, overall, imagine if you had a Zavia on this team. I think she would really shine because she puts up a lot of poisons, and Zavia can then detonate those poisons, and I think it would help the waves clear exponentially. So she's just another champion that would help really well with a Zavia. So overall, I think she's useful in the Fire Knight if you need that type of champion. She did decent damage, and she's able to help with opening those shields. Okay, so before we take Rowan into the arena, I did want to get her with more accuracy. I'm building her as a damage dealer, not a debuffer, so Maybe that's the right thing to do. Maybe it's not. But we had to make some sacrifices. But we're sitting at almost 4k attack, 30k HP, 197 speed. A little bit slower than I'd like, to be honest with you. But we were able to keep that crit damage at 220. And we were able to get our debuff accuracy to 262. And 183 resistance is not bad either. So we've made her her role here as a secondary nuker and a bit of a crowd control. That's what we're going for here. So Rotos is going to be our win condition. We're going to boost, we're going to debuff, and then we're going to hope that Rowan can do something. Now I wanted to show you first time on auto, and that's important to know what your champions do on auto because it's going to tell you what they do on defense. So she prioritized her A3 over her A2, and it's honestly the wrong thing to do in the arena. It does not help things out. But it made this battle way longer than it had to be. And it's unfortunate because I think if she used her A2, it could have been a different story. Okay, on the second battle here, we're going to manual it this time so that we can make sure that she prioritizes the skill we want her to prioritize. So again, turn meter boost, debuff, and then instead of using the A2, which hits really hard, but is a single target nuke, we really want to support Rotos and his attempts to win this battle. And to do that, we're going to use that, which has that 60% chance to place a stun, 3 random hits. Now, that actually was not a bad thing. It was random. It hit twice on Madame Stress, once on Martyr, which stopped Martyr. Martyr has a pretty good toolkit. So just not having her there was useful. Now, I didn't think Cardinal was going to die that easily. Usually Cardinals are pretty high defense. So that was a little shocking. But overall, and then we weak hit there, but not a big deal. At this point, we're pretty good to go. I'm not too worried about it. So another good win that she, I guess, you can't argue. She definitely helped. And there she kills Rosin. And, that's the end of the match. So this is a slightly different match. Normally, go for the stun, try to lock everyone out. But I've got 2 damage dealers that I need to deal with. And I can't worry upon the RNG to help me survive. So in this particular scenario, what I decided was she's got a 4-hit A3. And it does reasonable damage. And I've got Rotos sitting there who... if you try to one-shot him, it's trouble. But if you 4-shot him, it's perfectly fine. So instead, we decided we only needed 3. And that way we could get rid of Rotos, we could get rid of Foley, and then, from there, it's just basically all she wrote. I think a nice big 80k hit. So keep in mind, just so those of you who are like, oh, Rotos still hits hard, that would have been 120,000 minimum prior to the nerf with my old gear in my old setup. But nonetheless, a good win. I understand that this is becoming a very long video, but I want to show you why Rowan is bad. Here we go with, a chance to stun. Boom. We only hit 2 champions. It doesn't proc at all. So not only did the RNG force it onto 2 instead of 3 separate, or 4 would be nice. It just didn't proc, even though there's a 60% chance because I have her fully booked. So as it turns out, wasn't a big deal. It still did some good damage, and so we were still able to win the match, but this is upper middle gold 4. If we were higher up, that would have spelled disaster. Of course, if we're going to show the disaster, we kind of have to show the other side of it. So in this particular case, we've got the same layout. We're going for that A2, and boom, hits 3 for 3. So that was, and as you saw, I was getting speed cut. So that absolutely turned the tide. If she would have gotten the chance to boost, Krutraxa would have killed probably both my nukers, and I would have lost this match. So, the good and the bad of it, and what I talk about consistency is that in gold 4, in platinum arena, in high gold 4, and whatever, even gold in bronze 1, the more consistent you can have, the better the outcome is going to be for you. And so that's what makes her difficult to use in the arena, is that lack of consistency. My final thoughts on Rowan are this. So far as her ability to fight in the dungeons, she is passable at best in most scenarios, though I will say in the Fire Knight, because of her 2 abilities that multi-hit, she's still going to do major work and help you bring down that shield. She's also really good when paired with Xayah because you can detonate her bombs. So long as you get the turn order right, it's going to be an absolutely helpful piece if you don't have one of the other champions that puts multiple poisons up. As far as the arena, she's going to be great for you early game, probably amazing for you early game. The further you progress in the arena, the worse she's going to get. And it's because there's too much RNG on her major skill in the arena, which is her A2 stun. With some simple changes, she could be amazing there too, but as it stands now with her toolkit, it's a lot lackluster. Where this champion is absolutely going to excel for you is in the Clanboss. At the top of the video, we showed you versus the de facto standard in poisons on a counterattack Clanboss team. Frozen Banshee laid down 20 million damage in that key, whereas Rowan put down an honorable 15 million. You could argue, well, she's not as good as Frozen Banshee, so why are we even talking about this? Well, there are a lot of limitations to Frozen Banshee that Rowan solves. First of all, she has Void Affinity. That means it doesn't matter what Clanboss affinity it is, you're going to get that same consistent damage so long as you've built your team out to properly handle things such as the speed debuff. Secondly, she does not need counterattack. Her poisons are based on her A3, which has a 3-turn cooldown. Also, that means if you speed her up, it means more poisons. You can use her in a 4-3 comp, for example, as a secondary champion, and she will do amazing work for you, laying down poisons time and time again. Keep in mind that she has a low defense, so there is some limitations to what you can do with her to make her viable in the Clanboss, but she's still going to do great work even if you don't have counterattack, and especially no matter what affinity you do. Because of this and all other factors, I would put her as tied with Occult Brawler for the 3rd best poisoner in the game. I say that Frozen Banshee is the best poisoner right now as far as pure poison goes and poison damage because of her poison sensitivity and her ability to lay down poisons through counterattack. But Draco's still probably the de facto champion when it comes to full toolkit. He hits way harder, and of course he comes down with the defense down weakened all in one champion, making him such a valuable tool in any Clanboss team. Still, pulling a Draco is a difficult task to achieve, and not everyone can use Frozen Banshee in all situations. Keep in mind there are only 3 counterattack champions in the game, and a lot of people are trying to do Clanboss poison damage without counterattack, and that's where Rowan is going to absolutely outshine the competition. Even Occult Brawler cannot compete with Rowan when it comes to non-counterattack teams because he has only about 50 to 60% chance to land his poisons. So the more turns he gets on his A1, the more poisons he's going to potentially land. Without those extra turns, he just may not compete at the same level. Nonetheless, I think overall, when you compare the two toolkits, I think Rowan and Occult Brawler are on par as far as averaged out over, say, the lifetime of them hitting the Clanboss, whether it's Nightmare or Ultra Nightmare. As far as her overall toolkit and her changes in 2.2, I am vastly disappointed. As much as I do love her and I think she's absolutely useful, I mean, heck, I did videos on her beating out Kale for damage in the Clanboss before she even had any buffs, and everyone else was telling me she was trash for the Clanboss because of her A3. In spite of that, I really wish they had done more. She is a Void Affinity Epic Champion, and those champions should be strong, they should be coveted, and they should be able to do amazing work. And she just does good work. And I think that's a real miss on the part of the developers. I would make a couple simple changes that would not only make her a Clanboss aficionado, an amazing champion, but would also really help her in all areas of the game. My first change would be to change this to 100%. There is no reason why a Void Affinity Epic Champion doesn't have an A3 that puts in 100% chance to land this poison. Kale has it. So why are we even having the conversation that Kale can land 4 poisons at 100% and Rowan can't? She is harder to pull, she's more expensive to get, and when you book her out, she should be a better champion. It shouldn't be close, it should be blown out of the water. As far as her A2, I would change this to a 3 times in succession or a 3 different champion. I'm okay with the percentage chance of landing if I know that it's going to hit different champions every time. Alternatively, maybe it would be 100%, but it is 3 times at random. Either way, I want to know that she's going to stun someone. I need to have that sense of knowledge that I'm going to lock someone down. Not everyone has good AoE nukers, and if you have a pair of single target nukers, you need to be able to lock someone down on the other team, or 2 or 3, to be able to win the match. If she lands 0 of the stuns because she puts all 3 on one champion that has a high resist, you basically would have been better off bringing someone else to the team. Anytime you progress, especially as you get into the late game with the arena, you need more consistency, and having 2 RNGs, the random and the percent chance to land, is too much. Her A1 is a much simpler change. Please have the Clanboss block the heal reduction debuff. I know you can do it. You have it on other bosses. It's probably the simplest change. I'm a programmer. I know in my head, I see a little value that states what things can be, and then you call a function that says does not allow heal reduction. Congratulations, you've fixed her kit so that she's amazing in the clan boss. With those simple changes, I think she'd be an amazing champion. As it stands, I still feel she's a really good champion. Most of you that pull her are probably going to make great work with her, even if it's just in Faction Wars, but probably also some usability in Fire Knight, definitely early game arena, and in the clan boss. What do you think of Rowan? Do you agree with me, disagree with me? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, I want to thank you for taking the time to visit me today. I hope you subscribed. I know that 78% of you do not subscribe, as already mentioned before. So anytime that you can help by subscribing, it's going to help me with not only the YouTube algorithm, but with the content creator program. Finally, I want you guys to be kind to one another, be safe, practice social distancing, and I'll see you in the next video.